Howdy, 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 howdy. Open it. There we go. Welcome everyone. Let me you admit all. Happy Friday. How is it Friday again? Like, it was a busy week for us. But I'll tell you what, it was a busy week, but at the same time, we got a crazy amount of stuff done. So very exciting stuff. Scott and Ray, and the guy, Norman. See you guys all connected. Andre and Tom in the YouTube chat. Scott, you're glowing. Yeah. Yeah, Ace and I were talking about the lighting and how we both have the same black shirts, and yet his looks so much bluer and lighter. But yeah, lighting is a tricky thing on computers and digital world.
Yeah, it's the camera. I got a window in front of me that I look out, and so I'm not sure how to make the camera not make me glow.
Hey, Tom.
Hello, good morning.
Morning. How many people did you get signed up to test your, or you don't have to say how many, but was it, you get enough people?
Oh yeah, I think I got like 10 or 11.
Okay, good. Yeah. Like I said, I thought, and I know it's, you know, the starts, but it's got potential of being a whole new way to help, you know, develop your code and stuff. So it's cool.
I plan to I'm going to be releasing a third and final beta test probably in the next few days. And if everything goes smooth and, you know, whatever, I'll be you know, once I decide, I'll release it to the actual Chrome extension store for free. So one more beta test going out, because I did make a lot of changes since I did my video, your video, and sending out the beta 2 version.
Awesome.
Not a lot of changes, but added a few things, moved a few things around, fixed a few things. I only found one problem where I had a bad URL.
Yeah, I remember seeing comments on that.
But it is ready to go out for the final beta version, I'm hoping.
Cool. I don't know if you want to, if you're brave enough to put your email up here, but because we streamed before to the hero group, and now we're you know, the broader audience. But if people want to, it sounds like regardless, it'll be out here in a bit anyway. But yeah, it's a cool Chrome extension for accessing and using AutoHotkey, like creating resources and things. So yeah.
Yep, I'm gonna put that in there. I can show if we have time. If nobody has questions, I can show a few, like a 5-minute quick, you know, changes.
Let's ask real quickly if anyone's got stuff they want to work on right now, and if not, then we'll jump into
testing. There we are. Hey,
Okay.
Haven't seen you in a little while, man.
Hiya, guys.
Hi.
Hello.
Hello.
Right.
That is
Let's see.
the weirdest thing. My stream of YouTube was just frozen. Never seen.
And it was not it was not paused.
No, well, you know, maybe I clicked pause and didn't realize it. I don't know, but I'm back to go.
Yeah.
Right. So does anybody have
Isn't there a song about that?
Does anyone have anything we're wanting help with right now, or should we jump into Tom's extension?
Let's see. Everybody doing good, I think. Let's see if anybody has any questions. I think Jeko said that he might be joining the hero call to ask us about sending JavaScript on the on a browser.
Yeah.
We'll leave that for the hero call because we have a little bit more time there.
Yeah, but if he joins, I would say it's just because he's in Italy, right? So it's late for him. That's why I thought, okay, it's late at night, right, for him.
Oh,
so
right, yeah. If he joins, then
if he's here, we'll do it here. Yeah.
Right, no worries.
Of course, you can always watch the replay.
Definitely.
When do we go into reruns, by the way? When
That's a good one. And it seems to be that nobody has any questions at the moment.
Yeah, so Tom,
I'm sorry, let me mention something. I'm not really sure, but Norman, who joined the call, I don't know if that is your a picture that you have there, or if you're sharing your screen by mistake. I would double check on that, because if it is your screen, remember that this is a live call in YouTube. You might not want that showing.
Nothing really.
Right. No, just in case.
I've got some general questions, but it doesn't matter to me if or when we cover them, but got some general things.
Okay, go for it.
Go ahead.
One is trying to learn GUIs on V2. I never learned GUIs, you know, I just dabbled in them in V1. And then in V2, there's great examples of really powerful code, but you have to go through advanced topics to learn the basics of the GUI, and I get squirrel, dog, butterflied on learning the basics in V2 for GUI. So I didn't know if there was any good examples or learning path, that kind of thing.
I can definitely give you kind of like a 5-minute crash course on the basic of how to create a simple GUI and the idea of how to react to things on things. So it wouldn't be like too deep, but it gets you kind of like a start. And from there, I can tell you where to go to get more information, because I can give you some examples.
Before you do, so let me, one is the URL over my head. We just launched the intro to AutoHotkey in version 2 right now. That doesn't cover GUIs at all. But just FYI, we just got that out. And the next course, I was talking to Jace about it yesterday. We were going to do the intermediate course, but then we thought, you know what? The V1 to V2, the major changes, GUIs are like drastically different. So he said, why don't we work on that course next? So in, I'd say 3 weeks, we should have an intro to GUIs course in version 2. So just FYI.
And that would be wonderful. That's super.
But yeah, and I'd still say do the demo. Well, he can do a demo now. I just wanted to let you and everyone know that like we actually are working on a GUIs course in version 2, because it is, like I said, I don't even want to. We were on the call and they're like asking us for the link, and I'm like, I don't even want to sell the GUIs to version 1 course. Because it's
going to change so much.
Yeah.
Right. So what I'm going to do, let me just share my screen for a bit. And it's kind of like a 5-minute introduction that gives you at least started. And let me also open up where you're going to go. So GUIs in V2 are objects. So if you have already played a little bit with objects, it's going to be very familiar to you. If you haven't, don't worry, it's very simple. But the GUIs objects is divided in 2 big objects. One is the GUI object itself that contains many controls. And the second object is the control objects. Each control has its own object that behaves differently. That's the main idea behind it, right? So when you're searching on the help file, if you look for GUI, you will see here that it says GUI object. And in here, you have information about how to create a GUI and everything. But the main part that you want to check is the GUI object. This is the one that tells you what are the actions that you can do with the GUI. You can add it, destroy it, get the position, hide it, maximize it. This is what controls the GUI. The other one is, again, as I mentioned, the control. So control objects. So let me see, hold on. GUI control object. This is the one that you're looking for. The GUI control object, instead, whenever you're referring to a button, for example, then this other object is the one that you get. I'm going to show you how you get it. And when you get that, these are the actions that you can do with a control. So you have to get familiarized with those 2. Of course, I'm not going to talk about all that right now. But for the controls, the most important part is the properties of the controls, because it tells you if the control is enabled, if it is focused, the name of the control, the value. And this is the one that you will see very often, the value. I'm going to grab either the text or the value. I will not go into the details about what the difference is, but they usually give you the same thing. Certain situations, they give you something else. But now that you have those 2 things separately, let me show you a quick piece of code that creates a GUI. The main thing is, whenever you create an object, you have to store it in a variable. The variable can be named anything you want. I usually go with what the GUI does. So the main GUI of the application, I usually call it main, and I create a GUI object. That's how you do it in V2. Now, creating the GUI itself doesn't do anything. Now you have to add controls to it, and then you would go main add. Now this function takes 3 parameters. The first parameter is what the type of the control that you're going to add, some options for the control, and the default value of the control. That's basically what you do. So let's add a button that is 75 pixels wide, and the name of the button is the cancel button, right? That's the idea behind it. And as I mentioned, every time you add a control like this, it returns a control object that you can store in a variable. So I could call my variable cancel button. That's the name of my variable. And whenever I add the control, that returns a control object. So this is a GUI object. This is a control object. This second part is optional. You don't have to save it if you don't want to. But certain situations, if you want to check if the control was disabled or not, then you would have to get the object and check whether the object is visible, for example, or if it is enabled. So those are the properties that I was mentioning. But you have to get the object first, right? Now, in this case, I'm not going to store it because I don't need it. After I create my GUI, then the last step is showing the GUI right there. Now, when you show the GUI, you can select how big or tall your GUI is going to be. If you don't do that, it automatically calculates the size for you. Right now, if I don't specify any sizes, it will just go ahead and show a GUI with the button with the size of the GUI being that to accommodate for that one button. That's the basics of it. So if I want to add more things, then I would just copy this guy, and the type of thing that I want to add is a list view, for example, and I want that to be 300 pixels wide and I don't know, 20 rows. For a list view, what I have to specify instead of text is the columns, and that is going in an array. Later on, when you read about those a little bit more, you can get more information. Let's say name, last name. I'm just going to put those two. And let's add the list view first and the button second. Now I show it. This is just because I don't have the single instance. It's just telling me that the script is already running. I say yes. And now I have a list view with a button. You see how easy it is to create a GUI? It's not that hard. After you get the types of or edit or controls that you can add, you just add them one after the other. You can position them. Like, for example, I want an OK button. So let's get an OK button right in front of this one. But the cancel button, I don't want it below the other one. So at the bottom, you see that they are showing both one above the other. I want to show them horizontally. Then I would just tell it, okay, I want my cancel button to be to the right of my OK button. So this is the OK, this is the cancel. And this just says, add it to the right. I can put some pixels here, 25 pixels, 10 pixels, it doesn't matter. But the M is kind of like the default pixels for the margin. That's what it means. So X plus M says, put it to the right, the margin amount of pixels. Doesn't matter what that is. I could set that up before or after. Doesn't really matter. And now I have the buttons one after the other. That's it. That's the main concept of building the GUIs. The problem is, hey, I want to react to the GUI. And in V1 and V2, there's a big of a difference there. That's the second big difference of GUIs, because in V1, GUIs are not objects. So that's the first difference. The second difference would be how you react to actions. As this is an object, remember that I told you that I can save this into my OK button object. Now the object has a method called onEvent, right? And that tells, I can tell the button to react to certain things, whether I click it, whether I close the GUI, where there are certain events, there's a list of events. I'm going to link to that too. I'm going to send all these links on the chat so you have that. So if you look for the onEvent part of the documentation, you will have a list of events that you can target. Not all the controls get all the events. So for example, you cannot click on a list view for, well, you can. Let me see. If you click on it, it tells you which controls accepted So if it is not one of these controls, you cannot capture that message. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
So you can have a button, and when you click the button, you can react. Well, what we're going to say is, on the event that I click on this button, let me call a function. So this in V1 was the label that you would call, or the function. Here, you just specify the name of the function. You can create whatever name you want. So I say show OK message. That's the name of my function. Now that I created it, now that I referred to it, I have to create it. So whatever you want on your code, you just create a function that takes in or performs the action that you want. But be careful. Whenever you click, there are some parameters being sent to this thing that you have to mention. For the click, when you click here, when I check on the click event, it sends 3 parameters. It sends the object that was clicked, the information that depends on the object, and if it was a link, it would have a 3rd parameter called href. I at least have to mention these 2. It could be any name. I usually just copy paste them, or I have a hot string that does that. I could name them the object and the info. That's it. But if I don't care about them, like I'm not going to be checking on the info and I know that the object is this button, then I don't need them. Then you can just put an asterisk there to indicate ignore them, right? I usually, for these type of things, just use the asterisk. Most of the times, I don't need to see which button clicked what, so I don't care. Now, in this case, I just perform my actions. So let's say message box, you clicked the OK button, and that's it. So you have to react to the event. That's it. As this is an object, this is one of the interesting things about objects. You don't have to save everything into a variable. You can string the actions one after the other by using the dot notation. So this here, I could concatenate it right here, and I don't need to save the variable any longer. I could have the whole thing in one line. Does that make sense? So I create the button, and that gives me an object, and that object, I'm going to call the on event on it right away. So I can do the whole thing in one line. That's one of the good things about this. As I run this code, what is going to happen is that if I click the OK button, I'm going to get a message box. Does that make sense?
Yeah,
And
that's great.
Yeah, that's it. So basically, those are the things that gets you started. And again, if I want the cancel button, I could use the on event. This time, I'm not going to show the OK message, maybe the cancel message. So cancel. And this one, I do the same thing. I don't care about parameters. Now, all my actions, in this case, I'm going to just copy this, make it there, and cancel. So I don't know if you have any questions regarding this.
How would you close the window? If you cancel the button, if you wanted to actually do the same as X, close the window.
Yeah, you can either, so you
Rather
can
than message box, you change that to a
to exit app or hide. So let's say that I
not
just
exit
want
the app, but actually close a GUI, destroy the
Right.
GUI.
destroy it. You can use now remember that we created an object here. And as I
Yeah.
mentioned, each GUI object
Has it got
has some methods on it. So things, if you want to act on that window, one of them is the destroy method. So what I have to do is grab the main object, which is the main GUI, and then use the destroy. That's it. That's all you have to do. Now,
and the destroy function? It looks like a function. Is there any parameters that go in there?
No. So if you click on it, it would tell you if it needs parameters. It doesn't.
Okay.
So in this case, as you can tell, it is really. Oh, let me see. Yeah.
That
So
was
in this
awesome.
case-
Thank you for that. It's given me a heads up without having to. You very simply and succinctly demonstrated the basics.
Right.
Which is lovely.
It is not that difficult. So the differences of what you would do in V1 is just that you're not going to be using the dot notation. and that instead of using the on event, you would use a G label.
Yes.
That's it.
So what I'm
but
saying is
after you
you've
get
just
the
saved
idea,
me
like-
hours of research. Thank you.
Right. Now, the only thing that I will do, so let me go ahead and grab the links. So I'll give you the GUI object, right? So the GUI object, the GUI help file, the GUI control object, the events, and the GUI types. So these are all the types of controls that you can create. Each of them has different parameters, things that you can do with them. So if you want a hotkey or a date time calendar here, just take a look at this thing, take a look at the parameters that it takes, and then how to use it. Usually the documentation is really, really good at doing it gives you very clear instructions, but you will have to kind of read a little bit to get yourself up to speed. So I sent you on the chat.
And if all else fails, there's ChatGPT for.
Or just go to the hero group, ask your questions, and we'll be more than happy to help you on that too.
No, but thank you, because if you know what you want to do, once you got the basic structure in your head,
Right.
the minuscule syntax you can go and look up.
Right. That's right. And that's exactly what I did when I was learning. I just said, okay, how do I get that looking like I want it? Okay, I got it looking like I want it. How do I make it react like I want it? If you learn in chunks, if you don't have to learn everything at once, it is easier for you to grasp.
Well, if you can do it in
everything.
version 1, you know what to do.
Yes.
You know what you want to do. You know
Right.
what the response needs to do. You know where to position it. It's
and you
just
just
changing
deal
the
about
syntax.
the syntax. Right.
Yeah. Yeah.
So what I'm going to
absolutely.
do, let me get if anybody else has any other questions, or if Tab Nation wants to show off his thing. I'm going to create that same GUI in V1 so that you can see the differences or how different it might be, because it's not that hard. While you guys go ahead and ask your questions and show the things, I can just write it out.
Awesome. Thank you.
I just add that GUIs, while they're a simple GUI, is pretty easy to create. When you start adding on some stuff, it does become much more complicated.
Right.
You know, it's when I used to go to those Python meetups, and there were like 50, 60 people there, I would say like, hey, I'm trying to use this in Python. Okay, great. Oh, I'm trying to create a GUI. Oh, I don't do GUIs. Like everyone's like, oh my God, GUIs just in general are just much more complicated than regular code. So
Yeah, that is how it usually is.
I have another basic question.
go for it.
In the manual, I see a lot of references to emptying the variable at the end of the program. And so I'm wondering, is the memory still occupied after you do the exit app?
No. When the application is exited, AutoHotkey automatically frees any type of memory that you have, except for the COM objects.
I was
that you
gonna
have to
say,
release
if
yourself.
if you launch like Excel or something, and especially if you launch it not visible, those will still be there, and you got to go track them down, or you can kill them programmatically. But that's the one thing of like, you'll notice, hey, why do I have 20 instances of Excel running? Hidden.
That's right. Yeah.
And then the last one that's been puzzling me is, can you take the contents of one array and put it into a second array all at one time, or do you have to do it through iterations?
That's a very interesting question. It's a little bit more advanced than the others, even if you don't think it is.
I can imagine, because I've been stymied.
Yeah, it is a tricky question, is what happens. What happens is, and I will show something like that. When you create an array, you put it in.
You muted his ass? Oh,
No, so my microphone just got disconnected.
hate it when
So-
that happens. Yeah.
Right. So what happens is you create the array and have it in a variable. If you assign that variable to another variable, instead of creating a copy, what you're doing is referencing the same memory. So any changes you do in one variable affect the other one. So that's the tricky thing. And usually when you have two copies of variables, what you do is that you assign one to the other and then you have a copy. And if you empty one, it doesn't empty the other. That doesn't happen with objects. Objects, when you assign a variable to another one, then you are referencing the actual memory of it. So changes happening both at the same time.
It's like giving the same variable two different names.
Yes, the same space in
that can
memory.
be
It has the
problematic
same.
if you don't know about it.
Right.
Yeah, so-
Now,
How
the-
do you copy it?
and I had that question a while ago, and the concept that you're looking for is creating a shallow copy of an object. And at this point, there is no way in AutoHotkey to create a shallow copy of an object. You have to loop through it and push it into a different variable, which is really simple. And I can show you how to do it after we check what if.
I'm sure there's a function for it that you can.
You can just, it is just a loop that you're going to do. I'm going to show you how easy it is.
Yeah,
It is annoying, but it's simple.
yeah, I know how to do that. And yeah, that was the annoying simple thing. I was just trying to have a list
Built
of
in.
data that had sorted ascending and a list of data sorted descending. And so I was having to loop through it and I didn't know if there was a shortcut.
What I would say is, I'm sorry, go ahead, Joe.
Well, I was gonna say, I would also look at
Yeah, I was just going to
Big A
mention that,
function.
the big A function. Yeah,
okay, yeah.
exactly. So what happens with that is that he created a set of functions that work on arrays to do exactly that. It sorts them, slices them, splits them. You can do a lot of operations. You just include his library and then you have access to that. So I would definitely take a look at the big A library if you're going to be working with arrays in that sense, because instead of you having to do those little things, it opens a bunch of good methods that you can perform on arrays. I think
That was V1 though, right?
Yes, it is V1. Great.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
I like similarity from the big A.
Yeah, the similarity. Yeah, it compares the two and tells you how similar they are. Is that what it does?
Yeah, yeah.
Right. Yeah, it has a lot of interesting functions. They just make it a little bit easier to deal with them, so you don't have to create those little loops yourselves. So let's see. I don't know if Thomas wants to show his script. I already have the GUI created, but I'm gonna wait until he finishes, or if there's any other questions.
Yeah, I can go real quick.
All right.
Because I'm just going to show a brief description of what it was. So in case you guys haven't seen, Joe and I did a video. It's basically just a AutoHotkey Chrome extension. It does work in multiple browsers, including some of the more popular ones, obviously Chrome, Edge, Firefox, and a few other ones that I've never heard of, but they're basically clones of Chrome.
Yeah.
So far we got it working pretty much on some of the big ones. Let me share my screen here. And I'm just going to show some of the changes I made. So the first thing is, originally I just kind of put a placeholder name. It was called Tab Nation AutoHotkey extension. Now it's called the Tab Nation's AutoHotkey Companion extension, which could change again. But for now, that's what I got. So far, that's a change. Documentation. Or not documentation, but all these extra links down here. I have a new section here called YouTube channels. So I got a few there. If the channel hasn't uploaded with 5 or more years, I haven't put it on here. I might at a later time, but these are people who are at least have uploaded something in the last 5 years. Obviously, me and Joe are up here. Now, the big change that I made that took me a while to get working because it was giving me issues with local storage, but V1, V2 beforehand, if you clicked V2 and then closed out and then opened again, it would go default back to V1. It wouldn't save.
Yeah, I know.
And so as you see, I just opened it and it's already back on V2. So that's working now.
Yeah.
and it affects two places. It affects your search. So, you know, if I have V1 or V2 selected, it's going to go to that command in the documentation based on what you have selected. The second thing is if you click on the home button right here, it opens a new page. So before, the IDE used to be its own page. So I moved it over here, which was nice because it saved a lot of code, a lot of less files in it. So it's over here now. But if I were to select, you know, toggle and say display, it's now going to display the version 2 code because that's what I had selected.
That's
But if I
good.
have version 1 selected, it would show the version 1 code. So I got that done. I also added categories here because last time, a lot of you probably saw that everything was defined as a toggle in here. But I finally added categories. And if anybody has any like common used ones that they're using, you know, like run as admin, you know, definitely email those to me. That's in both of the chats right now, because I am looking to add even more. As you see, I don't have too many right now.
Those are definitely kind of like snippets. Is that what
Yeah,
they are?
yeah, this is
Yeah,
the
okay.
snippet section. So
All
these
right.
are like a lot that I use.
The requires directive should be there. Both like the
Oh, yeah.
requires directive, that should be kind of like a default for everything now.
Yep. So yeah, anything you guys think of, you know, definitely shoot it to me. I do have a few that I need to add. Definitely need to add the directive one. Standalone mode. This came from Azaziel because he called it standalone mode. I like that better than pop out mode. So that got renamed to standalone mode, which is basically this. And like I said, you have to manually resize it because Chrome doesn't allow me to write code that does it for security reasons.
Yeah.
But this is so you can kind of pop it up and then go over to like, you know, your IDE you're using. It's almost like an extension for Notepad++ now, or VS Code, or whatever you're using. It's like right there, which is nice. And it also saves here too of which
All right.
version you are using.
That is interesting.
What else did I add? Just for the fun of it, I added AHK tips. So you just click on it and it gives you, you know, AHK is a fork of AutoHotkey code. 7 most costly words in a company are "we have always done it that way."
Yeah.
So they're not necessarily all AHK tips
Related.
but some of them are coding. Trying to find, but I only have 10 right now, so I'm looking for more like coding tips, AHK tips, you know, just stuff. You know, you can use both V1, V2 HK on your computer. Just use the hashtag requires, you know, stuff like that.
I'd say coding is debugging is one of my favorites. So just
Yeah, I like that.
Work
I'll add
smarter,
that
not harder.
yeah.
No,
So yeah,
but I would
throw
say,
them in the comments, email me.
yeah, you can just go ahead and open ChatGPT. Give me 100 AHK related tips, and it would gonna give you a bunch of them. And
Yeah,
then you just pick the ones that you like and get new ideas from there as well. I actually encourage people to anything that has to do with creating text like this, just use the tool. It's saves tons of times actually.
oh yeah, that's what I do with my YouTube titles. I type in my idea of a title and I say, give me, you know, 5 picks.
Yeah.
And it does better than I could ever do. Scary.
It's amazing, isn't it? Yeah, me too. Tom, I didn't realize how boring I was until I
Yeah.
did this. And I'm like, oh my God. Like
I
these
was
are so
like, man,
better.
I suck at titles.
Yeah, it's funny.
Well, I find ChatGPT really useful,
yeah.
especially with my photography business. I text clients or message them, and because if you try to call them, they kind of ghost you. They're like, I don't know who this person is, so you got to text them first. It's funny how just by wording the text differently slightly, it's the difference between them answering the call or not answering the call.
Yeah.
Right.
So I text them first saying, I'm about to call you. This is who I am. And they go, oh, I really want to talk to the chap. And they answer the call.
Yeah.
That's pretty great. The last thing I believe that I've added since last time is I have a settings thing down here /info. So this just has my email and what version you currently have uploaded. So this is version A3, but we now have light mode and dark mode because originally I only had dark mode, but you can click light mode. It will ask you to reload, and now we're in light mode. So if I go here, you can see everything
Yeah. Looks
is,
good.
you know, just very basic right now.
No, but that looks good.
So yeah, light mode and dark mode. It defaults to dark mode just because that's what I like.
Yeah, that's how it is.
So yeah. Pretty much that's, I think, all the changes. So yeah, the emails in both chats on YouTube and Zoom. If you guys want to test it, this will be the last version going out in the next few days. So if I don't answer you right away, just give me a day or two, because I'm going to just send it all out at once to everybody. That'll be the final version before going live in the Chrome store. Or if you have ideas, or like Azaziel and Joe were giving me tips to add, snippets to add, stuff like that, or any just a new idea in general that you would like to see a new feature completely into it. So yeah, that is it.
Awesome.
I saw a question from Kwong on if we can help with UIA element detection, but I asked if we could join Zoom, because obviously that
Is really vague because I can give you an idea, general idea, but it depends on your program. Some programs might not allow you to do that easily. If you can join the Zoom chat, that would be great. Anybody else has any questions?
well, I think you can. Well, if you join from Chrome, it will have a little bit of app, but you don't actually have to install the full app. You can join from a browser, and even then you can share your screen and stuff. And Christopher, I don't know if you saw, I was messaging you in the chat. We got the Pushbullet thing working again.
Yes.
So
yeah.
quickly, let's talk about
chat. Thanks.
Cool.
I just opened it.
Real quickly though. So Christopher had reached out for a tool we built a long time ago, Pushbullet, and I'm like, yeah, whatever, we'll figure something out. And what was crazy was it stopped working, and it stopped working because they drastically changed their API and actually not only deprecated, but actually like removed the older functionality, which was really like, I don't think I've ever seen.
Weird. Yeah,
that
I have never seen that, and it is one of the reasons why we say APIs are so complicated, because not only you have to deal with that, everybody does it differently. When they make changes, not everybody changed the same way, because usually what happens is that they have a version, they say V1, V2, and if they're doing a third version, V3, for example, the V2 doesn't change. They leave it as is. So if you're still using V2, it doesn't break. These guys, I don't know what happened, but for whatever reason, V2 now is having some issues. And I was like,
What's
okay.
Pushbullet?
Yeah.
What is this Pushbullet you're talking about?
It's for messaging.
Right. It is kind of like but it is not, it is similar to, what was the other one that?
It's similar to Telegram in the sense that you can send, messages and pictures, or you can send SMS texts. So
Right.
It does both, but I use it to share files between my phone and my computer and share the clipboard. Okay. It's a pretty functional tool. That the free version gives you, I forget how many per month for free of texting, and then the paid version you get some additional things.
Yeah,
and it's like $40 a year, somewhere in there.
Awesome.
So let me go ahead and share my screen once more. I don't know if I think, well, Norman is still here. I will show you what I was mentioning. So this is the V2 version that we just created. And here at the top is the V1 version. So the same, so the amount of code that I'm creating is not gonna change that much in many things. I could still make this V2 code shorter. I just didn't want to go into it to confuse anybody. So it looks really similar, but notice that instead of creating an object in V1, I use the new keyword, right? This is the part that I really like about objects.
Hello.
Hello. So
hello.
What I really like about objects is that notice that here I said GUI main near, and then I start GUI add, GUI add, GUI add. If I have 20, 30 of those, and I have 2 or 3 GUIs, I don't know which GUI I'm referring to, because the GUI add doesn't tell me where I'm adding it. Here, every time I add something, I know who I'm adding it to. So if my GUI is my preferences GUI, right? This is my preferences GUI. When I add this guy, I know that I'm adding it to the main GUI and not the preferences GUI. Does that make sense? So that's one of the reasons why I like object syntax, because it forces you to use the right name, and everything you add something, it has a context as to where you're adding it to. Here at the top, for the list view, you were using in V1 pipe characters to delimit the how do I say, the columns. What if your column had the pipe character in it? Yeah, you would have issues with that. In V2, you were using arrays and those kind of things, but everything else looks similar. Here, the OK button now is calling a G label, which could be a label or a function. In V2, you don't have labels, really. You just call the function name like this. So that's the main difference. It looks very similar, but you know, the difference is not that much. You will see that I'm adding a list view of this with these proportions, with those columns. Well, in V1 it's the same. You add a list view with these proportions, with these columns. So the change is not that drastic. If you have been working with V1 and you're crossing to V2, that's not what is going to trip you up. What is going to trip you up is certain subtle changes, like how you define columns, how you call functions. That's it. After you get the hang of it, it's not going to be that hard. I don't know if you guys have any questions on this. Yes, Irfan said that V2 is more object oriented, and I really like that. Right, that is correct. V1s are based on labels, which labels, if you think about them, they're the same as the functions, but limited. You cannot pass parameters. It's not scoped. It is kind of like a limited function. So in V2, he said, yeah, don't do that. Like, don't use labels. The only thing that you can use a label for is to use the the go to command, because you don't have the go sub anymore either. So, yeah.
But that scope is one of the major differences between V1 and V2.
Yes.
Like, wow, a lot changed.
Right. That is correct. So any questions? Anything else that you want to add, or anything that you want to comment?
I think
Just real quick, I want to go back to Azaziel's ChatGTP thing with AutoHotkeys. So I told it to give me 20 AutoHotkey tips. The first 6 were actually pretty good, but after that, it was just defining commands.
Right. Okay. Yeah.
Like, use win move to move windows. I'm like,
No way.
great.
Yeah.
but Tom,
No,
you know, you could
First 6 were
easily
good.
change it to say, give me, you know, programming tips, and then you tweak them to how it applies to AutoHotkey, right?
Yeah.
So it
That's
still
true.
works, but at least it gets you close.
I'm going to tell you something. Even though you don't think it is a good tip, you might be surprised about how many people don't know how even to move a window, and they might not realize how the command is so easy to get because it has the name of what it's going to do there. So I do realize that even though for us it's like, yeah, of course you can move a window with WinMove, there are some people who don't even realize, oh, I can move windows. Oh, that would be interesting. I want to move a window. What can I do with it? So it might trigger some action for somebody that.
And you can forget.
Right. Yeah.
You know, the one thing I do is whenever I decide to learn like a new code, I'm just not someone who's going to sit there and read all the documentation all the way through, remember all the syntax and everything. But what I will do is I'll read every command and at least like the first sentence of, you know, okay, when move, it moves a window.
Okay.
That way I know it exists. And then when I need it, then I learn the actual syntax and
That's
hopefully
exactly
remember
how I
it.
do it.
Yeah.
That's exactly how I do it. Like, now, here's the thing. Somebody was joking and they were bullying me because, oh, you read the whole documentation first. And then they say like, Yeah, that's the reason why I don't ask so many questions because it is there. Everything is there.
Yeah.
But I get it that it is very tedious to get that.
Hey,
If you're not a programmer, right?
let's Kwang joined and we have 15 minutes left. Sorry, I don't want to interrupt you, but
Right. No
this might
worries.
take a couple minutes. So you want to
Yeah.
share your screen?
Sorry.
Yeah, no problem.
Yeah. Hi. Can everyone hear my voice?
Can we what?
Sorry.
We hear you.
Yeah. Yeah, we can hear you.
Yeah.
Okay.
Go ahead and share your screen.
Yes. Okay. Can anyone see my screen?
Yeah, we're good.
Yes, I just a little bit. My background is I just learned Python like 2 years ago, and I just discovered this AutoHotkey and UIA and Chrome.ahk is really helpful, but I'm not sure that
To get.
how can I use this in my cases. I want to create a new like a tool to automate uploading some image to a website. So I just
All right.
Be-
Now,
before
can you show the site that you want to automate, please?
out. Okay.
All right.
and just before we go too deep into this, we have a video, like a webinar where we cover, I think, 9 different ways to use
Yeah.
AutoHotkey to automate browsers.
Like a website and yes.
Yeah. So
There's
anyway,
a
and
connection,
UIA is
yeah.
a decent one, but
Yes.
there are a lot of ways.
I use this UI. Yeah.
Okay, so let me
Yeah.
start with something.
Because
you go-
this yes.
All right, I'm sorry. I think there
Yes.
is a delay on your connection. That's the reason why we do that. But can you go to where you downloaded the UIA library? Can you go to the folder where the library is at?
Yes.
Because the
Yes.
UIA library comes with a tool that has, right. So if you go to the library, here. Now you see UIA viewer, double click on that.
Yes.
Now, here's one of the issues. I see that your code is V1. Now, the UIA V1
Yes.
library has a little bit of an issue. If you double click on the UIA viewer, go ahead and do that. Right? It should open up a tool, right? So if you go to the website
Yes.
that you're looking at, we go to the website.
Yes.
Right. So you will have to start capturing, which is with the with the F1 hotkey. So open the viewer, please. Just open the viewer.
Yes.
Hit the V1.
Yes.
So hit V1, right? Or start capturing. Now, when you hover over the button that you want, it will give you it's constructing right now. And once it finishes, you can press escape. So press escape.
Yes.
And now you will see on the left side where it says UI automation element properties on the left side. So it's a list view that says property ID, it says localized control type, and then it says the name on the left side.
The other side of the GUI.
Yes.
So go to the other side. So put your mouse on the
Yes.
left side. There, right. This is the one. So you see where it says name? Name.
Yes.
That's what you're going to be usually targeting. And the way how you do it is that, so can you go to the macro creator tab on the top right? Macro creator.
Yes.
Here. So you see the search function, just use the function there, the drop down, click on it, and then
Yes.
find first by. So find first by, and then just
And then-
add that. Hold on, let me see. Hold on. How do you add that to the? Oh, you don't have the button. The GUI is too small. Can you open up the GUI a little bit? Can you make it bigger? Oh, you're missing the button there. I don't know how to add that.
The button
to-
costs extra.
Yeah, in V2.
Maybe he has an
this-
earlier version.
Right, it seems to be because well, no, but I know that the V2 version has a button down there. I think it is there. It's just that the screen might be too small and it's not showing it. That allows you to create code. Oh, hold on, I'm sorry. Oh God, look at that. It says start capturing. So, and then use the print screen button to add functions.
Yes.
Oh, that's so bad.
Yeah.
So just start capturing, hit F1 to start capturing.
Yes.
Right, so start capturing,
And
hover over it, wait for it to be there, and then use the print screen command. Now
Yes.
hit escape.
It's a horrible hotkey.
Right, that's a horrible hotkey. Just press escape, press escape.
yeah.
And now you see the function says EL find first by, and it says control type button and name customize this design, and then click. That line right there is the most important line because that's the one that finds the button and clicks on it. Does that make sense?
Yes.
You can copy that into
Yes.
your code.
Yes.
Now-
Actually I have used this in my code. But
Uh-huh.
yes, but here's the issue that I have is if you can see earlier, I have pressed play, but sometimes AutoHotkey just like cannot perform. Like it's like you running and then you tired and then you have to lay down a little bit.
Right. I saw
have
that you
to,
were
like,
using some.
restart.
Right. I saw that you were using some sleeps in there, like sleep 3000. Instead of that, I would use the wait element. So if you go back to the tool,
Oh. Yes.
go back to the tool, and you see on the search function on the top that says find first by,
Oh.
wait element exists. That's the one that you want to do first. So you would have to do the capturing, and that would create the code that waits for the element. So you wait for the element before clicking. That I think is what you should do.
Oh. Thank you.
I would also highly, since you're familiar with Python, like you're not necessarily, a very entry-level person, the version 2 of UIA is far superior to the version 1. Like I would highly recommend you look at that because the code for you won't be that hard to switch to, and it has better functionality, and it'll also be more kept up to date, I think, because I don't think
he's not going to work in V1 anymore. But the problem is that then you would have to use AutoHotkey V2 code. I don't know if you know AutoHotkey V2.
But if he's already learning Python, if he knows Python for a couple of years, it shouldn't be that hard for him to,
Right. I think Python would look more similar to V2 than to V1.
Oh.
It's object oriented, right?
So, yeah, it's object oriented. So definitely, we would recommend, if you're going to be going down this path,
right,
use the V2 version of it. You would have to create the code in V2 for AutoHotkey as well, but it is going to be easier and everything is more stable, and he's going to be updating it more.
The other one, is this something you're going to run just on your computer, or are you giving this to people?
Actually, I just run this in my computer because it's just like a.
Yeah, it's okay. Well, because I would say Rifidium is also a really good choice. I'd consider using Rifidium.
The thing is here is that I tried this, but here's the catch that this website is they detect Selenium or anything that control this. So it will if I use Selenium or Playwright in Python.
Rifidium. Yeah. But anyway,
it will. Yes, I use that too, and it will catch that and have the captcha appear. It's not like the normal captcha that.
Well,
so
there's
the only way that I make this. I see that it is working is with UIA. So here is you can see that I want to click on G, and I already set that with the file by path, but somehow it just jumped to this PG-13. So I don't understand why that is happening. So that's I want to ask if are there any way, because I use this UIA. Hold on, I just need to close this first to stop.
And
the automation.
Irfan, who's on the call, he put in the chat, in the Zoom chat, a link on how to avoid bot detection with Rifidium.
Yeah. Yes.
So you might want to try that, because I knew there was a way, because we ran into the same thing, by the way.
Yeah, we did. Yeah. So it is just, the idea is just using your own profile instead of using the bot's profile as well. So just try it out. I think Rifidium is really good for what you're doing right now.
Yeah.
It is easy to use and
very
it is
reliable.
Stable, right? It's very stable. Now, UIA is great and we use it very often. And for example, yesterday we used it in one of the projects, and the person that we were doing the project for, he was like really surprised of how fast it is and how stable. But getting the code correctly, it's not that simple sometimes. It is really tricky. So depending on how what you're trying to do, it might be easier to just go with Rifidium. But I do have one last question. We have a few minutes. Can you on each line you have this dot and then the parentheses very far away? Is that because the text is not being shown? Oh yeah, the text is not being shown. Okay. I was like, what is that? Okay, I get it.
You might try a different theme.
Yeah.
Yes. Somehow I cannot find this, but I have to config this because it's annoying. I can see the click.
If you go to options, or is it tools? Maybe it's tools.
Oh yeah, you can change the theme, right?
To site. Oh, but why is site all grayed out? Did you see that? No, on the left under tools.
Tools. Right.
Yeah, and then to site
for our hotkey settings, it doesn't let you change it right now.
Grayed out. That's weird.
I don't know why. Maybe it's not in the correct location. Yeah. Okay. No, but if you have that option, if you open site and you have that option, you can change the theme to something that is a little bit easier for you to see it. All right.
Yeah.
All right,
well,
guys.
Run to our hero meeting. If you're not a member, which I know a lot of you guys are, but it's a great plan where we have 2 more hours today of live streaming and helping people. And then we have another hour tomorrow. And there's a Telegram group where you can also interactively ask questions and whatnot.
On that same group, somebody asked about automating the browser without UIA. So we are going to be talking about that in a bit. So thank you for being here, and hopefully we can see you there too.
Yes, because I used to have the Facebook, but it's too time consuming. So I just don't use this anymore. But because I tried this method with the file by path, and it's worked right at the first time. But after I moved from this file to this, and it just completely changed.
Yeah,
we're gonna see. Yeah, we're gonna be talking about those kind of things later. Okay, guys.